Shooter Breeze, topic number 3 says, I love it when these monsters tell the truth. When the capitalists talk about chastising the working class, how would that impact black people, the majority of whom are working class? So this came with a link as well to Twitter. And I really want folks to listen to this. Let's have a spirited conversation on this thing here. So I'm going to play it. It's a minute and some. I'm going to play it twice, and then we'll talk about it.
People decided they didn't really want to work. I think the problem that we've had is that we have people decided they didn't really want to work so much anymore through COVID, and that has had a massive issue on productivity. Tradies have definitely pulled back on productivity. They have been paid a lot to do not too much in the last few years, and we need to see that change. We need to see unemployment rise. Unemployment has to jump 40, 50%, in my view. We need to see pain in the economy. We need to remind people that they work for the employer, not the other way around. I mean, there's been a systematic change where employees feel the employer is extremely lucky to have them, as opposed to the other way around. So it's a dynamic that has to change. We've got to kill that attitude, and that has to come through hurting the economy, which is what the whole global, the world is trying to do. The governments around the world are trying to increase unemployment to get that to some sort of normality. And we're seeing it. I think every employer now is seeing it. I mean, there is definitely massive layoffs going off. People might not be talking about it, but people are definitely laying people off, and we're starting to see less arrogance in the employment market, and that has to continue because that will cascade across the cost balance. I think the problem that we've had is that we have people decided they didn't really want to work so much anymore through COVID, and that has had a massive issue on productivity. Tradies have definitely pulled back on productivity. They have been paid a lot to do not too much in the last few years, and we need to see that change. We need to see unemployment 50%, in my view. We need to see pain in the economy. We need to remind people that they work for the employer, not the other way around. I mean, there's been a systematic change where employees feel the employer is extremely lucky to have them, as opposed to the other way around. So it's a dynamic that has to change. We've got to kill that attitude, and that has to come through hurting the economy, which is what the whole global, the world is trying to do. The governments around the world are trying to increase unemployment to get that to some sort of normality. And we're seeing it. I think every employer now is seeing it. I mean, there is definitely massive layoffs going off. People might not be talking about it, but people are definitely laying people off, and we're starting to see less arrogance in the employment market, and that has to continue because that will cascade across the cost balance.
Yeah, one thing with these white folks, boy, if you listen to enough of it, they'll tell you the truth now. They'll show you how psychopathic they are, man. Interesting stuff. Pain needs to be felt in the economy, man. So you guys see Shooter Breeze topic number 3. Real Black Gentleman, what say you to it?
Well, I mean, he thought, he was the brightest person in the room that day. Clearly, the drive for profit and higher profit margins and ever increasing profit margins. It's not enough, to make, 300%. It's not enough to make 3 times your money, man. You heard, Nowadays, you got to make, you got to make $1 turn into, 500. It's like with the GM, there's a strike with the car plants right now, and in America, Chrysler, was it GM, Ford, and the Stellaris, the company that makes Jeeps and stuff. And the UAW, the United Auto Workers, are basically saying that, in short, they want to make, $300,000 for a 4-day work week. And they just had a snap strike. So, the CEO, their counter argument is that to do so would drain the company of liquid cash in order for research development and overall operating expenses. And so there is a big deal about, you know what I'm saying? This is where, you know, companies and corporations especially don't really want to you know, share the wealth. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? They don't want to do it. And you know what I'm saying? Like what this guy's saying, like he like I said, he really thought he was the smartest person in the room when he said that. He really thought that he was, look, I think I have a good idea. I think you know, I think we really gotta bring pain. And you know what I'm saying? We gotta really you know what I'm saying, let these old peons know, you know what I'm saying, like benefits and all that. No. You work for me. I'm your everything. And if you don't like it, you know what I'm saying, you can go out here and have a short life and be brutish. You know what I'm saying? He wants that will to power so bad. You can, you know what I'm saying? I see your true colors coming through. You know what I'm saying? He wants that just hard iron grip over his dominion and anything in it, unlimited. You know what I'm saying? It's like capitalism needs a cap sometimes. You know what I'm saying? Like at times, you know what I'm saying? It needs a cap. There's nothing wrong with, you know, enterprise and venturing and really coming up and getting all of yours. And I want people to get all of theirs. But when we're in this corporatized structure, you know what I'm saying? If you have your own business, it's different. But if you're in a corporatized structure, you know what I'm saying? Highly corporatized, you know what I'm saying? With subsidies from the government and all that. Yo, this money, yo, like if people putting in, you know, unique inputs and unique, you know what I'm saying, innovations, you know what I'm saying? That, no, like, you know, maybe the union in the UAW case is a bit overreaching. They want a bit much, but what they're trying to do is say, like, look, this is what we really deserve if we're being honest about it. And by saying that, they're saying that, look, you know, in a lot of companies, you know what I'm saying, in this country and the world, that like, look, you know, a lot of this, you know, what's the CEO make of McDonald's? They make $44 million a year. You know what I'm saying? And the entry level worker, you know what I'm saying, struggling to make, you know what I'm saying, 10, you know what I'm saying, 10, 12, and so. I mean, you got to have some kind of naturalness about profit divvying. If I'm in a company for 30 years, you know what I'm saying? Like, I make a significant portion of that profit in the overall company. Even if it's a company of 1,000 people, you know what I'm saying? The company itself, you know what I'm saying? Or, you know what I'm saying? 1 million people, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Institutional memory is priceless. You know, trying to retrain someone is a big deal. It takes a lot of time to do that. That's what companies don't think about. You know what I'm saying? When you're just in an ownership position, you don't really think about, you know what I'm saying, what it takes to, you know, make the company. You just have expectations that you just spit out. And you know what I'm saying? You want to be, you know what I'm saying, top delegator. You know what I'm saying? That's what a lot of these people are. They're not about it. They want to be the keenest delegators in the world. You know what I'm saying? I see something, you know what I'm saying? That kind of, I see something energy that's not right. And I need someone else to do something about it. I said do something. You know what I'm saying? That's that white boy's energy right there. I'm going ahead and pass. Let somebody else talk.
I hope y'all picked up on what RBG was really putting down in what he said. I like it. But at the end of the day, we still got to look at this fucking crazy white boy. And the fact that we let this crazy white, not particularly this guy, but guys like this archetype, we let them design and control the reality that we live in, man. That's where we are fucking up. Buono, what say you?
No, I think that he is a fossil, and he's following a old model, a version of how economies work in terms of capitalism. He is dependent on the ignorance of his employees to make him all the money. You know, that whole 30-year work for 30 years and then retire with a gold watch. He's a fossil, and he doesn't understand that because of COVID, the economies has changed. It's changed. You know, we are currently living in a so-called knowledge-based economy in the information age. You know, where people are using the skills what they would have acquired for 10, 20, 30 years or whatever, and they are selling it for their own right, on their own right. You know, people are learning how to be mechanics online by Udemy and different websites like that. Even the so-called social economy. You know, some women have cut on cameras on OnlyFans and they're making millions of dollars a year. You know, the automation automation with the invention of the so-called internet has changed the game dramatically. So now where you only if a person from a small town only had one factory where he could possibly make money, now he uses the little bit of knowledge that he may have accrued somewhere. He cuts on his laptop, and he gets a Stripe account and a business account, and he is able to do things online where he couldn't do that in the past. So what these guys are trying to do is instead of signing career contracts and paying certain like health care, dentists, and all this other, they offer contractual work, which is fine for some people because some people only want contractual. They only want to work for 6 months and then off to another company where they can make a certain amount of money if you're doing computers and things like that. I think that the game has changed and he is not changing with it because people now who have some sense about themselves are using the so-called knowledge-based economy to move differently in terms of how they feed their families. Some people, some 18, 21 year old with a laptop working in Thailand makes millions of dollars a year online. Because he finds his own clients, he finds his own bag. And I think that some of these people need to get with the times because if you have certain amount, if you have accrued any skill set right now in the so-called knowledge-based economy, there will be people willing to pay for it. Even at $19, one course they buy at 19.95, and if you multiply that by what 500, 1,000, you good for a year, and then on to the next thing. I think that people are clever and they're working out different arrangements in the economies, this economy of scale that we currently live in, and him trying to put the so-called close the Pandora box, where it's just one person you completely depend on for your life, your lifehood, your life uh, savings or whatever, however you live and exist in the world. That's changed, and he is not changing with that. So his attempt at putting pain in the economy is going to be futile unless you cut off the internet. And that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So people are figuring out different kinds of ways and means, whether it's by creating side hustles for themselves or whether they figuring out how to use the internet, how to use the internet to find a way to galvanize and make money for themselves. I think the game has changed, and this old model that he is trying to push off towards people is laughable. To me, he's a dinosaur. He's just a dinosaur. That's how I look at him. But I'll leave it there.
Buana, I agree with much of what you said, but I push back on a couple of things. I don't think he's this dinosaur who doesn't get it. I think he is speaking past those people that you're talking about, the people who will make a hustle over the internet. I think he's speaking about the fact that there are people who just won't technologize themselves. They are just going to go and be the workers, the cog in the wheel for the corporate elite. And I think he's
That's
talking
and
about.
go ahead, Coco. Go ahead. Sorry for interrupting.
No. Go ahead.
No, I understand what you're saying because there are always going to be people like that. In Coco, you are a professor. You probably understand that in life you will have winners and losers. You have some people who get it and some people who don't. The people who get it, it won't move past them in terms of how to move. They'll invest in watching certain things and learning how to do certain things and try to move different. But for the masses, you are absolutely right. You are absolutely right. But for people in the Western world, in particular for people in North America or any Western country, they have the access that most of the world do not in terms of using the technology that they have to enrich themselves. So if you right now, you almost have to make a decision to not inform yourself and just sit on a job under a fluorescent light for 30 years and not do nothing besides what you're doing. You have to decide to do that. You know what I mean? Because there's so much different avenues living in the Western world. If you're living in a third world country, maybe. That's an arguable conversation to have, maybe. But even in the so-called third world economy right here, it's difficult to see. For me, did what I was necessary to get a foreign account. Many people who go to Miami, they can get a U.S. account to try to move different, yeah, to try to get paid at other places and spaces. So I understand that perspective, and in that regard, he is absolutely right. I'm saying that for some people who will escape, they will use the technology at their hand instead of making crazy videos. Look, the girl just now, Coco, get $40,000 off a, shall we say, I can say a scam, but shall we say an alleged accusation. She could be able to pay for medical school in no time. You know what I mean? And she don't seem like the brightest person off the porch. So either you sink, we living in an economy, either you decide to sink or swim. And some brothers gonna swim, and some brothers, unfortunately, and usually it's the masses, they gonna sink. Because they gonna get into the nonsensical jargon of back and forth, not realizing the landscape has changed. COVID has changed the game dramatically. For 2 years, many people did go to work because he said, well, they wasn't doing nothing. Many people did go to work, but they used their laptops. Now that COVID somewhat has passed, they say, well, hey, if I could do this here, I could do this in other spaces as well. Why do I have to go to a brick and mortar? Why do I have to go to a brick and mortar? So this is the question these brick and mortar guys are trying to solve. And there's a conundrum going on because some people, not all, have decided to empower themselves in this game. But I'll leave it. I'll leave it there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I mean. He still is right because he's talking about the masses. The masses don't use if they have the internet, they don't use it for anything productive. And then we talk about the world. What's someone on the interior of the continent, our continent, gonna be doing? You're gonna be part of the masses, and this is what, and that's the thing we gotta change because we haven't talked about that part. These people are in control, and the idea that they could just intentionally inflict pain. The man said raise unemployment by 40-50%. The idea that you just fire people just for show.
You raise the reason why you say that is if you raise the level of paying or if you raise employment, then you could charge people less per hour for what they actually worth is. With like some person who might make $15, $20, $50, $100 an hour, when you start firing and laying off, they will be desperate. So they'll be willing to do the same work for less.
Yeah,
So that's the intention. Yeah.
yeah. That's what he's pushing. That's exactly what he's pushing. And because, as the prompt said, I should find the original prompt, right? As the prompt said, and shout out to KW Don 7 and Jose. I don't think I addressed Jose. Shout out to Bakari who just came up in the chat as well. But yeah, like the prompt says, the majority of the working class, that those masses, those people who rely on this job, this is the situation they're in. This is why we gotta get serious about changing this bullshit situation. We just gotta get serious about it. Before I go to Black Steel, I just want to point out for the last prompt, Jose Bronze in the chat said, "Yep, Netherlands loneliness is also becoming an issue," and I think that's kind of fascinating. I'm aware that there's lonely people, but I wasn't aware that there's some people groups are actually addressing it. I think that's kind of interesting. I think that's kind of interesting, and I do think loneliness is something that needs to be addressed because we are not supposed to be solitary beings like that. But I digress. Black Steel, you heard everything Buana and RBG said in the chat. What say you to all of it?
Well, we have to realize that most people are not going to go out there and start their own business, unfortunately. And even if they did, those businesses would still need workers. So it's not feasible for everybody to go online and have a business. Now, this cracker here, he was the one who said that that people couldn't buy homes because they're spending their money on avocado toast. He's completely out of touch with the day-to-day life of ordinary people. But there is a concept. When Karl Marx did an examination of political economy, he talked about what's called the reserve army of labor. So basically, it refers to the unemployed people in a society. In order for capitalism to function, there is a requirement that a certain amount of the population must be unemployed, because you need to be able to draw from this reserve pool of labor. So in that case, your workers decide to get too angry or too uppity and demand more money, you can just fire them, and then you can draw from the reserve pool of labor and have those other people work in their place. So that way, the reserve pool of labor serves as two functions. Basically, it serves as a scare tactic. You could be out on the street homeless, or alternatively, it keeps the capitalists with a steady supply of people ready to take your job. You don't want to work for $15 an hour? Fine. I know somebody who'll work for 12 because it's better than living on the street. So what he's saying is he really wants to have the reserve pool of labor to be increased. And that in of itself is bad enough. But then when you combine that with the increase in interest rates. So here in the US, the federal government recently raised the interest rates on credit cards, mortgages, whatnot. So, and they understood that by raising the interest rates, it was going to make things more difficult for people. And they did it anyway, because the idea is to bring the working class people who go to work every day. Most Black people, working class people. Most Black people get up, go to work every day, take care of their kids. Most Americans already live paycheck to paycheck. I don't know what it is in other countries. I know here in the US, most of us live paycheck to paycheck. Most Americans can't afford $1,000 emergency if something were to go down. So by increasing unemployment, you put more stress on working class people, which means they're more willing to accept things they normally wouldn't accept. And when it comes to Black people, we're usually the first fired. We're usually the last hired. So that puts more stress on our communities. You have more people having to work multiple jobs, having to move back in with their parents. It becomes a situation that becomes untenable. But also at the same time, this man unknowingly is creating the conditions for people to actually become more militant. Now, I don't think that's going to happen here in the U.S. I think that most Americans are too indoctrinated. They're not. I don't want to say intelligent enough, but I mean they're not intelligent. I'm just going to say it. Most Americans can't read above a 6th grade level, and that's real talk. So I think that what's going to happen in the U.S. is that as more of these financial crises come down on us, you're going to see, and we're starting to see it already. You're going to see a turn towards more fascism, towards more of regressive society, people lashing out and attacking the most vulnerable people in the society. Who's the most vulnerable? Black people, immigrants. You're going to start to see more violence directed towards those people. Because one thing about white people, I think it was what's that cracker name? Winston Churchill. He said you can always count on Americans to do the right thing after they've tried everything else. So, and I hate to quote him because he was a racist bastard, but the point is that we're going to see more violence in the country. As more of these economic things happen, we're going to see more violence in society, mainly directed at Black people, mainly directed at people who are the most vulnerable in society. What we really have to do is understand, especially African people, that we have to create systems and structures to empower ourselves. And it's not going to be not just to work somebody's job, but the entire system of capitalism itself has to be done away with. I'll leave it there. Thank you, Coco.
Black Steel, would you say that Black folks in America was at their best when their backs was against the wall, or when they was most comfortable?
I would,
Understanding the history. Yeah. Go ahead, brother.
I would say this. My grandmother was born in 1923. You know, she died in 2000. She's in her 70s. But her little brother's still alive. My grandmother's brother, my uncle, great uncle. And I think that many times we look back at, you know, those times during segregation and Jim Crow, and I think we're looking at it through the lens of history. But Black people in those times, you know, they didn't have adequate food, they didn't have adequate clothing. You know, you had starvation, you had um, you couldn't even walk down the street without a white person jumping on you. Not to say that doesn't happen now, but at least in America, it used to be a white person could slap you, call you a nigga, and you couldn't do nothing about it but go home and cry. You know, now at least there's some remedies to it. So I think that looking at the history, our backs being against the wall is not a good thing. And I think that many times some people think that if we were to, and I think that's kind of what Clarence Thomas is his thinking is that if you take away Black people's rights, if you put their backs to the wall, then they'll be forced to rise up and fight for what really matters. I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case. I think that the more destitute that makes us, I don't think it's going to increase our revolutionary fervor if Black people are down in the back, you know, down dirty, struggling to survive. I don't think so.
But black still, if I can make the argument, during the times when he's talking about your grandmothers and things like that, right? That's when he got the Thurgood Marshalls. I mean, I don't know what you think about him. It seemed like the most notable people come out in terms of struggle. It seems like the most notable people came out of that experience, you know, and it seems like now where you live in a situation where there are more, shall I say, comforts in the Western world. The face of the white supremacists is a smiley face now. You know, we are tolerant now. You know, now what we seeing is a whole lot of ratchet culture. So I would think, and I could be completely wrong about this, but I would think that, and I could put this for Haiti and our country and different countries of the world as well. It seems like Black people seem to be on their game when they have to be on their game, when they have no other choice. You know, even the Panthers, you know, you're a Panther guy. Even the Panthers came out of the fact that abuses was happening in their communities where they had no choice. You know, J.F. Gover was doing this nonsense. So the best of the people came out of these kinds of movements. So I feel like sometimes, maybe I be wrong, but sometimes I feel like to get us to move, to get us to animate ourselves, to get us to not to be so lethargic and it's like, well, I think that sometimes we have to, sometimes struggle has to happen. Let me put it like that.
I mean, I agree that the struggle has to happen, but I don't think that we have to be destitute and living hand to mouth in order for that to happen. I think that when you look at the Panthers, what they were trying to do was to free people from those conditions. They didn't want to continue the conditions to create revolutionaries. Because at what point, where does it end? What's the end game? Do we continuously struggle? Once we get free, if things get good, we slack off. It's back to struggle. So
Oh, but
where does it? Yeah.
but Black Steel, this is right now. The culture doesn't believe that the struggle is even there. You have Black folks saying that they ain't even Black no more. They saying they Indians and what's that Hebrew and well, let me don't get into that. I'm just saying that I'm just saying that there was a point in time where saw a whole lot of unity galvanized around we are Black. Period. End point. We ain't trying to segment ourselves into these different, because we have one common enemy and we gonna work against this common enemy. Period. We ain't drinking for colored only fountains. F that. This is our specific purpose. We want proper housing. Yes. We want to go to schools, proper schools. We want the schools to reflect the educational experience of us actually going there. These in the 20s to say, well, we need universities. You know, we just come out of slavery, so we need to educate ourselves. So Black folks in a situation come out of slavery they educated themselves to a degree that was unprecedented in American society. I feel like that, and their backs was against the wall because of that. You know what I mean? They was forced to do it. Now you have the comforts of the Western world. What are we doing? What are we doing, Black Steel? You know what I mean? What are we doing? What are we doing? You know, so I don't know. I don't know. I feel like sometimes with us to get us to animate ourselves, sometimes our back must be against the wall. Maybe that's the Clarence Thomas position. And I don't want to take Clarence Thomas' position, but I feel like sometimes to animate ourselves, that's what's necessary and needed. Because the black people can go to sleep, Black Steel. They can go to sleep and go off into all manner of nonsense. Nonsense. I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
I want to underscore the fact that black people are in the condition that we're in, not through any lack of skill on our part, any laziness on what we're doing, but we have to understand that our enemy has never really relented. We have to. They create laws and systems, and whenever we get ahead, whenever we have any type of advance, and I would ask, outside of superficial things, what we're still dealing with many of the issues that our ancestors faced with. Hell, I mean, we're still dealing with voting rights, and black people supposedly got the right to vote in the 1860s. Yeah, we're still dealing with many of the same problems. I don't think it's because that we're slacking off or we're not putting in effort. I think that we're just I think we don't really understand the fight that we're in, and we're not taking this. We have to understand it's a fight for our survival and our lives, and we have to continue to move that way. I think sometimes we forget that when we get a victory or something good happens, we can't slack off. We have to continue to press the advantage. Many times we react to things happening instead of being, staying sustained and being a protracted struggle. We get comfortable. Oh, cop got arrested. Okay, we can sit back. Then it's another person. Somebody lost their house and you win a lawsuit. Then we can think we've done something. But I think that we just can't lose sight of the goal. I don't want to see any black people suffer. I think we suffered enough. All of us, no matter in the U.S. or anyplace else.
Yeah, Black Steel, you said something very important just now, extremely important. You said that our enemies have not relented. And the question is, have we relented? And I believe that is true. I believe we relented because the image, the symbol Barack Obama in office. Oh, some people still saying when we pass slave, this whole color dynamic now, because we have a black president in office. Oh, Kamala Harris, she's the first female black president. So now we could kick back now since we have made the gains that Martin Luther King once wanted. He said one day we'll have a black president. So some black people have relented, and I'm saying that you can't relent in the middle of a battle. The battle ain't over yet. And some people actually believe these things. They believe them things on Black Steel, So I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm talking from a distance and I can't see what's actually happening on the ground. And you would know that better than I would. So I'll leave it.
So what's going on in the Bahamas? I mean, Bahamas is a
Oh,
majority.
Jesus Christ. These people here are, oh, goodness, man. I don't want to talk now because you get some Bahamian listeners. But the scenario, oh God.
That bad, huh?
And let me say this. I'll put it like this. The awareness that Black Americans have in some issues in terms of color, and some issues in terms of race, and some issues of power dynamic, I wish that we had those sensibilities. But I think that I would always say that after independence, quote unquote independence, that we should have went through a process of decolonization. And the leaders of the country didn't know that because they were still colonized. They were still colonized. So there are ceremonies that exist in the Bahamas that still remnants of British society. I mean, we still have honors given from the crown. We still have a governor general, and the duty of the governor general was really to be the queen in place of the queen not actually being here. So that's what the representative of the governor general. That should not exist in a so-called independent country. Independence means you are free of. Oh goodness, I could go on and on. The laws of this country are still, we have not changed the laws of this country to fit the society we currently exist in. For the culture and the customs of an independent nation, we still have laws that is echoes of English society that should not exist. I could go on. We still have a statue of Columbus. Could you imagine? Still have a statue of Columbus on
That's
one of our.
crazy. That's
This is
crazy.
true. I could go on for hours. We still have a statue of Queen Victoria. I could go deeper. I could go deeper. We have a statue of Queen Victoria in Parliamentary Square. Do you know who Queen Victoria was? Oh my goodness, man! I could go on for years, and I try. The last there was a politician. You know, they come to the different houses and to try to get people to vote for them. I don't know. Koku knows. You know how to. And so in my area, we have different constituencies. So there was a person who tried to come to get us to get me now to come. I said, listen, brother, I am a Gaviite. You know, and as I was speaking to her, you could see the the um the people who was with him, like they're like they had their mouth
Oh,
open.
oh.
I'm a black nationalist. Why would I vote in terms? I don't believe in the parliamentary system. I just like he was just looking at me like I was crazy, like I was literally insane. You know, so there's a lot of work to be done. I have For me, the reason that I have actively chosen, not to involve myself in the political sphere in the Bahamas is even if I was to get into government, it's very difficult because first of all, you have to get into parliament, to be a representative of the Bahamas, you have to swear to the Queen, her heirs and successors on the Bible. Yeah, this
Oh,
is
that's
what you have to do.
nasty. That's nasty work. Yeah, that's nasty.
Not only I can listen, Black Steel. The lawyer in the Bahamas, we still wearing the white wigs. I'm like, I can't put that shit on. Listen, brother. I could go on for days. The freedoms that y'all enjoy in America, I envy. I see some things that, like I say, I don't like to involve myself into internal politics of other men's countries. But
But
oh goodness,
oh
I could
goodness,
go
I
on for
could go
days.
to bed.
You know, but I just
But
leave
I
it
just
because
leave it because
this is a
this
fun
is a
show.
fun show.
Somebody mic is open. This is a fun show for me. This is something that I enjoy because you get to engage in high-minded intellectual dialogue. But this doesn't exist in my world. This doesn't exist in my world. You know, but this is something that but I know of a world where we could have free discussions, we could have free dialogues, we could have dialogues that is something that's progressive, and I enjoy these dialogues. But these things don't exist in my world, brother. I gotta tell you, I gotta tell you. You know, I'll leave it there, man. I'm rambling.
That's
I'm
very
rambling.
Disturbing,
disturbing.
man. I had no
No
idea.
idea.
I mean,
I,
I think
I
that
think that
there is a
there is
position
a
for
position
political
for political
education. I think that
education.
has to be done all over the diaspora, really. The political education for African people needs to be a paramount thing. I don't think we need to suffer. I think maybe we need to reach out and educate our people about the contradiction. I mean, I think many of us are aware of the contradictions in society. We just have to, as Fred Hammond said, we have to raise the contradictions and educate our people. And I think we can start there. I think that would maybe more effective in kind of pushing us back to Jim Crow, antebellum slavery.
Yeah, everything Juana said there is I second everything he's saying there. Trust me. I think Real Black General want to say something, but your mic was creating an echo. Go ahead now.
My bad. I third what you're saying. Like the Bahamas, geospatially from the United States, right? It's it's a zone that I mean, people might know something about Canada and what's going on in Canada. Some people might know what's going on in Mexico and what's going on in Mexico. People might have the idea what's going on in Cuba, but there's a fourth country that's very close to the United States. It's right there. It's called the Bahamas, and because it's a very broad area of our people that Black people in America are not, go to the island. No. What's going on with the people? There was a whole hurricane, you know what I'm saying, when that hurricane came by. And I mean, the Bahamas are very, very, very low lying. So any kind of like storm surge is devastating. These are things that like, the way that American, like, people here with materials can just like, on some interest, business, you know what I'm saying, build something up type stuff and just have a position, those, just being on an island. This is why Britain has interest in it. It's the location, like they say in real estate, it's the location. I mean, it's everything. It's if you know what I'm saying? These things are important. And I mean, as for Bwana saying like not wanting to like say anything like, please, like you aren't saying anything. Your viewpoint into America, you know what I'm saying? Imagine if you were like sitting like a very like on a pedestal, like looking into America. You have a clear idea what's going on in America, a lot more than the people in frankly probably Puerto Rico or anywhere else. Of course you should speak up because you're right there. Like, hey, brothers. I see that they kind of doing these movements. I can sense it, but I just have these. You should say that. I would encourage it. I'm not gonna say don't say anything because you're not from. No, fuck that gap in the sea. You see something. You see something closer to someone in Hawaii. Talk. You know what I'm saying? I third it. You know what I'm saying? That's all I wanted to say. You know what I'm saying?
I feel you, brother. The reason why sometimes our relationship with our American brothers, for people who don't have, because my brother, people who don't have intimate relationships with our Black American brothers, the relationship we have, the formal relationship is, and this is going to be controversial, but it's a relationship as we are your servants. That's controversial to say, but like explain it. When Black Americans come here, we are usually the porters who carry your bags. We fix your beds. We make sure y'all have a good time. Y'all having a good time. We taxi y'all from here, and there, and things like that. But in terms of going deeper, in terms of the real relationship of brotherhood, that's not really there because of the so-called economy and the industry that's here. There's a barrier. You all have that American passport. We have that Bahamian passport. So there's something else that comes along with that arrangement. Some of our children get to go to your colleges and universities, so we see the different sides. But for the typical rank and file Black person in this country, this is the engagement that we have. Unless we have these kinds of conversations. This is why I appreciate the internet sometimes, because we are able to talk a little bit deeper, And this is the reason why I feel like in Africa, sometimes when Black Americans or Black Western people from the UK or Canada go to Africa, some people say, well, y'all is the white man. Y'all is the white man. Because the only relationship we have is the industry that we work in and how we are introduced to our brothers coming from distant places. It's not a brotherly one. It's just a business one. They say, well, and some Black Americans decry, or Canadians or people from the UK, why y'all only want money from us? This is our first introduction. And I feel like that introduction needs to change because there's something deeper there. And we need to involve ourselves in the real lives of one another. Because the only relationship that currently exists is, okay, you have an American passport, you're American, so I have to see you as that and treat you as that. So it's a situation or arrangement of master servant. That's effed up to say. But if I'm being honest, currently because of the economic system in terms of tourism, quote unquote, I can say the plantation system, that is the current arrangement. And my attempt is to try to change that in our dialogues and our conversations. So you could, whenever you think about a Caribbean person, you may have to, you only think about a coconut and a Bahama mama, with a straw in his mouth. You can think a little bit deeper. There's something beyond that straw in his mouth and Bahama mama and smoking dope and reggae music, So, so this is the reason why I love to dialogue with my brothers internationally. And Coco too. Coco ain't gonna tell you that he too refined to tell you say something like that. But he knows though. He knows very well But I'll leave it there. I'll leave it.
I really appreciate what Trigger Happy said. We have to be really aggressive on the capitalist question because it is this economic system that we are under that allows us to see our brothers and sisters as mere commodities for exploitation. Bringing it back to the original prompt, we have to really be questioning and work to undermine, overthrow. And I think capitalism is doing a good job of fucking itself up in the foot, but maybe we need to push it along a little bit further because what it does to our personhood, to how we relate to each other, is that we see each other as commodities. We see each other as goods and services, and we don't really look at the true person. Like you said, we're not really relating to each other as brothers. And I think that's something that Garvey understood way back in the 1900s. That regardless of your nationality, what flag you're born under, you're still Africans. We could very well have been from the same village in Africa. And if we don't come to a better understanding of that, I think we're going to continue to see the system deteriorate. So I'll leave it there. I know we're getting late. We're going on to the next prompt. So thank you.
It's all good. I love the conversation that we had there. And that last conversation with Buana and RBG, I particularly appreciate it because Buana is right about that relationship. I can remember when I first started to see that back home. The black tourists is just not, the relationship is just transactional, and I wish there was a way we could change that. I wish that, like in home country, someone's mic is open. Like in my home country, I wish that we could do something different with that tourism thing where black tourists can come and really, really get to know who a Bahamian is, what a Bahamian is. I wish there was a way they would change that. And from my understanding, Jamaica has a similar issue too, wherein the black tourists just go to a resort and kind of hang around that, and you might get a peek at some poor folks in Jamaica on the way there. But I wish there was a way we could really make that experience something more than what it currently is. In the chat, I agree with Trigger Happy here. He says, can't have true brotherhood with an economic system and political philosophy that says everything is me, 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 and not us, us, us. We must be aggressive on the capitalist question. Afro-Native World said to Buana, what about brothers and sisters that will tell you we're not American? We're black like you and see you as brothers. You don't meet folks like us there? I'll let Buana speak to that now, actually. Buana, what say you?
Yeah, I don't want to make it seem like there are black Americans and black Nigerians, because you have Nigerians who actually live here. The Nigerians, they fix my tires all the time. I like the Nigerians. You have relationships with people from different parts of the world who live here. You have Bahamians who marry people from the Western world, and Canadians and Europe, black English and other countries and things like that. So the relationship moves. It's not only a situation where it becomes a master servant relationship, because the arrangement, the intimacy involved is a little bit different. And there are stars who come here, so-called stars in your world, like Shaquille O'Neal. Shaquille O'Neal is go to the hood, be ride up on bicycle and things like that, because he's a dude. So he go past the whole paradigm. I'm a big star in the Bahamas, man. That's Shaq, in the hood doing Shaq nonsense, because he familiarizes himself with the people who live here. He said, I'm just American. I'm just as black as you. They condescend and come into different areas and relating to the people differently. So they're able to see another side outside of that so-called ridiculous tourism creation. And we are able to relate differently with one another. But if you come to these areas and you just stick with what the tourist paradigm is, which is a tourist paradigm that's created by some South African man who have nothing to do with Bahamian society, or some white guy who bought a hotel and he only wants you to restrict you for these specific areas, then you really don't get a fundamental understanding of the country that you come to. The only perspective you get is a Bahama mama and a straw hat and ganja and some reggae music. This whole uh it's it's like almost like if you're in America or if you've never been to America, where you create these little parodies of what black culture is. Back in the day, they had the whole concept of what the black man is in America. This dancing happy Negro on a plantation, tap dancing. And for people who never really interact with a black American, they'll think, well, that's him, because they create these narratives. So this is the narratives that they create for the Caribbean people. Unless Caribbean people interact on a more on an intimate basis, not in terms of sex, but more on an intimate basis with other peoples in the world, then they say, "Oh, okay, that's not true." But if they see the paradigm that exists, they say, "Nah, I know Bahamian people. That's nonsense." It's almost like when we watch movies, Caribbean people watch movies, and we hear someone pretending that he is a Jamaican, say, "That's not a Jamaican accent. That's nonsense." Or right away, because you have done the work in terms of engaging with people from different countries. If I never knew that about Nigeria, the only thing I know about Nigerian is scam artists. But I met highly intelligent Nigerian folks, hardworking, independent, doing their thing. Even Haitians, there's a narrative about Haitian people. Many people don't know there are some Haitians who are multi-millionaires and never been to the United States of America. But this is not what these people sell to the world. So all I'm saying is sometimes with us, we need to get beyond the surface level and go beneath that a little bit. And then we'll discover that there's so much more there. But I'll leave it because I'm rambling.
That's all good. Something you said in there made me remember there was a time when they used to describe Bahamians as beach bums. Beach bums. I find that interesting. But anyway, I digress. Let's go to Shoot the Breeze topic number 4. Usually I would pause here to do station ID, but you know the deal. Check out all the other shows like Brother Bakari, who was in the chat earlier, The4Kast, Realm in the Bush, who was in the chat earlier. That's Cassidra Cheek. Oni will probably be on in the morning. He's in the continent, so he can't be on Shoot the Breeze like that. Tanzan and Hashali Podcast. Let's hope that they're back soon too.